Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to a thing in which we talk about, in which I hopefully get to chat with some of you all about digital hygiene and personal cybersecurity. I'm really excited to discuss this with you all. Please let me know, as always, if tech isn't going well. I'm endeavoring to set everything up beforehand properly, but hopefully I got everything working this time. My name is Rose. Sometimes I go by Yari online. In fact, I usually go by Yari online. Lovely to see you all. Hello, hello, hello. I use they, them pronouns. Happy Pride. It is June 1st from where I am, so for those of you watching in the future, happy every month is Pride Month and every month is Wrath Month. And for those of you watching right now, happy Pride. Anyway, I'm really excited to talk with you all about this. I've been having a really wild time diving into the subject of cybersecurity and personal hygiene, personal digital hygiene. And it's just been really absurd to see some of the threats to people online and some of the ways that we can respond to it. So my hope, my promise to you is that by the end of this time, and by the end of whatever questions that you all have, again, please put whatever questions you have in chat. I love questions, and I will hopefully have some questions for you as well throughout this time. But by the end of this time, I promise you that you will leave here with some tools, that you will leave here with a greater understanding of your own, the scene of digital of digital actors that wade within this sort of corporatocracy that we live in, and also that you will leave here, more importantly, with some tools, some easy to use tools that you can install on your computer, that you can set up on your phone or digital device right now to help make your digital life easier, safer, more secure, to help you worry less about this sort of thing. So this is the time, right now, right here, this is the time where we can talk about this sort of stuff and have these sort of conversations so that you won't have to be consumed with anxiety about this in your daily life, right? It is my sincere conviction that having these conversations actually relieves the worry about it later on. And that's why we should have more of these conversations. So that's why I think that this sort of thing is incredibly important. I'm going to grab a book really quick from my backpack that I forgot to grab out earlier. So you might even say it's one of my props. So I have props. Okay. So that's my promise to you. Is that, yes, Beans, this stream will be absolutely archived on this channel. You will be able to watch it later. We are also very concerned with personal cybersecurity. It's a very important thing to think about all the time. Or maybe not all the time, but every so often, like I was just saying, right? This is something that we should come back to occasionally. So I'm glad that you are interested, and thank you for asking. Yeah, we will absolutely be archiving this. One of the things I've been reading recently is a book that I think is really critical, really interesting. This fantastic book. Try and hold it up so that it doesn't completely filter out. There we go. Hey. Aha. Yeah. This is a really interesting book, Crash Override by Zoe Quinn. I really highly recommend it. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoe Quinn, Zoe Quinn became a particularly poignant figure because of the Gamergate harassment campaign that was levied against them, among many other people. A horde of absolutely false accusations were thrown at them, and it was one of those instances in which, not one of the generation points of the alt-right, but one of the points at which the alt-right became particularly poignant in recent history. And what this book does is it particularly makes clear how much of that was due to poor policy management, how much of that was due to poor systems that, poorly maintained systems that are in place in our digital lives. And I think that it's really important that we reckon with those systems. So, this small amount of time that we're having right now is not about that, unfortunately. I can't really reckon with the scope of that. I don't think that in this small amount of time I have the tools to reckon with the scope of that. I do encourage you to read about it, right? I do encourage you to read about it, and I encourage everyone to read about, not just in this book, but in many other books, and in articles online, certainly, the scope of the task, but also the scope of solutions presentable to us. How much we are at almost zero in terms of how this sort of corporatized, centralized social media system, and especially how much the legal system has to catch up with digital security, and how much that can still be built on. So just to be clear, this is not about that. This talk is not about that. This talk is more about how to prevent yourself from being attacked, how to prevent yourself from being hacked, how to help protect yourself. But I do want to say that those systems, those broad-scale systems, are things that the Pirate Party is thinking about, and things that we should think about, and things that we should have conversations about. So as we dive deeper into practical tips, which we are going to, I'm going to transition over to my other screen here. Here we go. Transition. Ooh. Magic. Okay. Fancy magic. Okay. So here we go. So I'm gonna write out a broad scale outline for you here. Right? We got 1. We got 2. We got 3. Okay. So broad scale outline. First off, right? We have the larger scale issues, right? Which we're not really going to be able to address as a part of this. So this is, larger systemic conversations, right? Of online security. Online. There we go. Got it. Okay. So first and foremost, right, larger systemic conversations of online security. Those are things that need to happen and things that we can help put forward. And I just want to address that because also, if there's a few things that I want you to take away from this today. One is that I will give you some tools. I'm getting to those in just a second. That's number 2, I promise. It's number 2. We're getting there. Okay, but number 1 is the most proactive step that I have learned that we can take as a group of people in working towards the betterment of our own cybersecurity and other people's cybersecurity is just talking about it, right? Is just having some of these conversations, right? Yeah, we're not going to change the frickin' system in a day. I know that, right? But these conversations are really, really important. Have them with a friend. Start talking about them. Have those conversations. Super important. Okay. Again, that's not strictly what this talk is about. So let's dive into the meat of this instead, because I am quickly running out of time. Love the time limit. Love that for me. Okay. So, flipping through my notes. Hello. Okay. Number 2. We can do two and 3 are 2 different things. Here we go. We got proactive steps and we have reactive steps. Broadly speaking, proactive steps, right? Proactive steps to sort of protect yourself, and reactive steps if something happens in terms of your personal cybersecurity. So broadly speaking, those are the 2 categories I would put in. Generally, we always want to be one step ahead of things. So generally, I'm going to cover more of this because, one, that's what I know more about, right? I have never had the misfortune of really falling too far into the having my information released online. I've had to do a bit of reactive work personally, as a person who's gender nonconforming, as a person who has old information that I have online that I don't want people to see. I've had to call a bunch of that. But I've never had that, I've never been doxxed. I hope I'm never doxxed. That would suck, right? But there are people, if you were doxxed, that would be that is all you do, pretty much, right, is reactive steps. So, broadly speaking, these are the 2 things that we're going to be talking about. Under proactive steps, we got a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, dang, we got a whole bunch of stuff. So many things you can do. So, when we're talking about, do a little tab action here. And look at that, we got, look at that, little points. I'm going to try and limit myself to a few things. We could go deep into this. First and most important thing is, as part of having these sort of broader conversations, is, as always, a general understanding of how, of hopefully computer hygiene. And this takes place over years. That's something you build up. And I think that's, something, it's interesting. I had a version of this talk, and you could definitely go check it out. I definitely recommend going to check it out on the Pennsylvania Pirates YouTube. I'll make sure it's linked either in the description or I'll put it in the chat. We had a version of this talk. I talked with Drew Bingaman, who gave a talk yesterday. And one of the things Drew was saying is that there is this thing that often happens as a tech person, as a person who is discussing with, who is working with people who are not familiar with technology, right? Where you will try and talk to them about, let's not put USBs that you are unfamiliar with in your computer without verifying that first, right? Let's not open up emails or email links that you are unfamiliar with without verifying that first. Let's make sure that you aren't answering as many spam phone calls, things like that. Basic things that some people may not know as much of because they are unfamiliar with certain aspects of how information may be taken from you, right? And so part of this is just knowing the flow of information. And I think what this is a fundamental understanding that I've developed over years, and I think that many of us have developed over years, that perhaps others haven't. That I think generally as a society, living under capitalism, living under this corporatocracy right now, we have to come to terms with, right? Which is this idea, I'm going to type it out, that when in doubt, you are the product. And I'm sure you've heard this before. It is not something, it is not something that does not go repeated. It is definitely something we've heard. When in doubt, you are the product. Especially in regards to online conversations, right? This is what phishing emails are all about. Phishing, for those who are unfamiliar, is a term that just basically means trying to get your information through spammy emails. So it is, this is, the idea is that, you have things that are of value to other people. Your money, your attention even. And the specific part of your attention being a product is, I think, something that is a little less finely, something that we're less finely tuned into, right? Knowing the degree to which our attention is bought and sold. Knowing the degree to which advertisements for us are bought and sold. Knowing that your name, my name, our information is on a list, on many lists, with advertisers, with brokers of information who are selling those lists, catered lists, saying this person, Rose, Yari likes anime, right? Yari's a gamer. And they're LGBTQ, probably, LGBTQ gamers. Probably a list somewhere that exists with my information on it. Probably. Right? And that list exists somewhere. And that block of people is bought and sold. And that then someone can say, I'm going to advertise to those IP addresses, and then that advertisement shows up on my computer because my name is on that list. That is how specific it gets. So they know you. Your attention is a product because your money is what they want. And that's creepy. It's freaking creepy. The fact that I can find out based on the YouTube stats. I hate this. I really, really hate this. It is terrifying, the surveillance state level of the corporatocracy that we live in. I can look in the YouTube analytics. I found this out the other day, and it scared gee willikers, it scared me. I could look into the YouTube analytics and find out the most recent searches of the subscribers to our YouTube account. That is not a feature I can turn off for the United States Pirate Party. I can look at the most recent searches of you as an audience. I hate that. Again, that is not a feature I can turn off. That is not a feature we can opt out of, but it's there. And it's like, oh, so what? So what? I'm supposed to make a video about the most recent searches that you've had to make more money to cater to my audience or something? I don't know. So when in doubt, you are the product. Your attention and your money are the products. And I say this not to freak you out. Maybe to freak you out a little bit, but more to say that we're in a weird space, right? And we need to have these conversations. It's important. It's so critical that we start to talk about these things. Because it ruins lives when this information is bought and sold. That is how Zoe Quinn's life was ruined. Because I can go online to websites where that information is bought and sold, and I can find people. And that's creepy. So like Zoe Quinn uses they, them pronouns. Their ex had other people find information about them online. And that has happened to thousands of others. Online harassment is a big deal, and it's a big part of online cybersecurity. So we need to reckon with this sort of stuff, not just as a broader culture, but also specifically, how can you protect yourself? Well, there's a few different ways. Because when online harassment happens, the question is, when is it going to shift over into something dangerous, right? We can reckon with this as a concept all we want. We can talk about these conversations all we want. But as soon as they get into your accounts and start posting for you, right? As soon as they hack your credit card or something like that, that's when all bets are off, right? Then we're into this. Then we're into reactive mode, and that we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. So, specific steps. First step. We can write this down. First step. Get a frickin' password manager. If you haven't gotten a password manager, let me tell you, it is 2022. Hate to break it to you. It's 2022. I know that we should have better solutions for this sort of stuff right now. Believe you me, there should be better solutions for this sort of stuff than a password manager. Again, that's what these sort of larger systemic conversations are for. It's to tell the makers of this sort of stuff, the developers, the UI experts, all that jazz, that like, I shouldn't have to use a password manager. Drew talked about this, right? Drew talked about this. Yeah, like we shouldn't have to use a password manager. Absolutely not. Absolutely. I shouldn't have to use a password manager. It sucks. It's kind of weird. It's kind of clunky, right? There are some good ones. I'm going to specifically shout out Bitwarden, Bitwarden, Bitwarden. It's good. It's open source. It's free. Generally a really good thing. It's been vetted by a bunch of third-party people. It doesn't have any holes. It's very good. I recommend using it. There are other open source and free things out there. I really recommend just typing in good password, like literally just search good password manager. Don't use Google if you can avoid it. Because again, when in doubt, you are the product. Google is selling your information. But like, there are other search engines. Type good password manager. Ta-da, you're good. Get a password manager. Because this sort of thing generates passwords every time for you, remembers them for you. That way you don't have to go like, what was that password again? Oh yeah, it's probably the same as the other one I made, but with like a 0 instead of a 5. And that way your passwords aren't all the same. Because if your passwords are all the same, then as soon as someone marks you as a product, we're back to here. And we don't want to be here. That's the bad place to be. Right? So, we're basically doing everything we can to stay away from the reactive section. Yeah. That's the trend. We're having conversations to stay away from the reactive section to help change policy. We are really collecting our thoughts and understanding that we are the product in order to understand that we can stay away from the reactive section. We are installing password managers to help stay away from the reactive section. Yeah, AJ, install a password manager right now. Go make an account on a password manager. I recommend Bitwarden if you haven't already. Okay, 2. Here, I'm gonna do this. So I actually I'm gonna do this with y'all. Because I'll be real with y'all. I've been using Mozilla Firefox for a while, which is okay. Firefox is fine. It's open source, but here's the thing. Firefox, shocker, in case you haven't looked it up, right? I'll always figure out, right, who is, where is the money coming from, right? Like, who is the product? Where is the money coming from? Firefox is made by, the primary funder of the Mozilla project is Google. So it's kind of like, right? Google is making their money selling you advertisements. That's where their money comes from. So you gotta kind of go like, well, what's Firefox doing then? They talk about tracker protection. But I have to install extensions to Firefox to make it more safe. I have done that. I'll show you a really good one in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and show you all what is hopefully, I'm going to try and download and install Tor browser. Here, I'm just going to do that while everything's running in the background. Yeah, because, here's the thing. Yeah, Privacy Badger. Thank you, Lion. Yes, that is what I was going to show you all. So, actually, yeah. I don't know if I have things cropped, so I can't show you. But, yes, Privacy Badger is very good. If you have a browser. So generally, here's my take. Generally, don't install extensions if you can avoid them. Extensions have access to every website you visit. Extensions bad. Hot take. Extensions are not good. There's pretty much nothing that extensions can't access. But Privacy Badger and Bitwarden are good. Privacy Badger was written by the Electronic Freedom Foundation. Electronic Frontier? Electronic Freedom? EFF. I don't remember what the acronym stands for. They're good. They're very good. It's been reviewed. It's all good. Bitwarden, again, reviewed by third parties. Safe. So both of them, good extensions to install if you're going to install any extensions. Recommend minimizing your extension usage as much as possible and reviewing anything that you do add to your browser. Your browser should try to limit what you add to it. Yeah. Yeah. Let's install Tor browser. Run Tor. So, AJ, I don't. Here's the thing. I don't know. I've never worked. That's a good question. I think that's a question for everyone else, as well. Like whether a Chromebook can be made better. I really don't know. I mean, like, like you have to you got to work with the tools that you have, right? I wonder if you can sideload stuff onto the Chromebook, because I'm pretty sure you can. I'm gonna look it up. Sideloading onto the Chromebook. I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah. Sideload, yeah. You can easily sideload onto a Chromebook. There we go. Answer solved. Yes. I just looked up sideloading onto a Chromebook on Tor. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, here let me. Switch this with there. Wow. There we go. Yeah. We got things. Look, it's Tor. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll get rid of that. Oops. That's even worse. Oh, it wasn't maximized. Thanks, Klein. Anyway. Okay. Things. Here's the other stuff. Okay. Other important stuff. I want to get to some other important things. So, password manager, we talked about extensions. Privacy Badger is really good. I had a whole talk with Drew about two-factor authentication. I think it's good generally. It's very good. It's a good thing to do 2FA when you can. And in fact, here I'm just going to link to everyone a few resources. I'm just going to link to everyone a few resources in the description later on. I'm going to edit the description right after I finish the video because I only have two hands, so that I can share some resources with y'all, because there's some great resources, specifically the journalist. There's a journalist group, some journalist freedom group that has some really great guides on this sort of stuff that I've been using for reference. So anyway, Signal texting. Try and use Signal or Telegram for texting if you can. So switching your browser, password manager. Ideally switching your browser if you can. Just Chrome is bad. Like anything like, just like Google bad. Like Google bad. Yeah. I feel like I don't even need to say that though. Like, that's just sort of this. I'm just like sort of repeating this. Google bad. Yeah. Here's the thing. When you are using Android or iOS is generally better, but they're not that much different, frankly. When you are using either of them for texting, regularly with the Messenger app on there, they are going to be able to access any of the texts you send. And when you're using either of them for the built-in call app, they are going to be able to tell how long and to who you sent those calls and when. So both of them. That is true of both iOS and Google. The question is what they do with that data. There's some papers on this. They're lovely. The question of what Google does with that data is much more convoluted than what Apple does with that data. Apple is a lot more clear about like, hey, we don't do anything with that. We just have to because of the way our systems work. But they have not. They have said in the past that that they won't release it, and they have neglected to comply with a government warrant before. However, they're one strong warrant away from complying. So it's like, how secure is your data really? How about the Pine phone? I don't know about the Pine phone. That's a good question. So what I recommend, Saranya, feel free to tell me about the Pine phone. I've actually never heard of it. What I recommend, though, is looking up alternative operating systems, alternative mobile operating systems, because they exist. As always, they exist. There are alternative mobile operating systems that you can get onto your, whatever phone. They're out there. You can just download them, put them onto your phone. There are ways to do that. It's sometimes a little bit of a process, but I'm working on doing that for this once I back up all my information on here. Yes. I heard that did not go very far. Linux is very good. Linux, here's what I'm going to hot take. Linux, very good. I use Linux myself, not on this computer, but on the other one. Linux, good, because you can select your distros. Linux is like 5 steps deep, at least, in this. So generally, most of the people who are going to be trying to figure this stuff out, right? First steps. But yes, switch to Signal. That's going to be my hot tip. Do that. Switch to Signal for exchange password management. Okay. Do that. There we go. Cool. Those are my 3 big things. Those are my 3 biggest things, right? Switch your browser if you can. That would be great also. Because again, like Google, awful. And so many people use Chrome. It's upsetting how many people use Chrome. Reactive. Can I scroll? Yeah, there we go. All right. If you haven't already checked out, I didn't want to do that then. That's too much spacing. AJ, I'm glad to hear that. Have I been pwned? This is a website that's good. You can check it out. It tells you whether you've been pwned. And by that I mean it tells you whether your information has been compromised by major data leaks. So if you put in your email or your phone number, Lion, you're absolutely right. If you put in your email or your phone number, you can find out really quite quickly whether your information has been compromised by a major data leak in the past, recently, whatever. They keep track of those data leaks and they just find out. So I've gone through and I've put in all my major emails and my phone number and found out like, oh yeah, like this one was compromised, this one was compromised, these ones weren't, and then I went through the compromised ones and just made sure that I had changed or deleted all those accounts that had been compromised. And frankly, gone through all the accounts under that email that hadn't been compromised, and made sure that the passwords were different. Because the thing is, if that one account was compromised and the password was the same as the other ones, right, someone can go through and hack those as well. Most people have had at least one account leaked. That's not to say that you have guaranteed. It's just to say that most people have. Because a lot of major data leaks have happened under big corporation names. Big corporation names. Equifax, everyone, or a lot of people have heard about Equifax, because that was a major incident. But there's certainly been so many smaller ones since then that still affected so many people. So I definitely recommend checking that out. There are sites that are more nefarious than this. Saranya, I love YubiKey and I would need to get one. Yeah, it's the best version of two-factor authentication. Drew has some thoughts on YubiKey that you should check out the video. We talked about YubiKey. Again, this is if you get to reactive. Hopefully, you never get to reactive. Hopefully, this is like have I been pwned is actually, I would argue, more proactive. It's like sort of like the middle line. Like it's sort of, you can, in between, right? You can use it for both. You can check it out right now and use it as sort of a pro-reactive, right? So I recommend doing that. But if you use it, if you get to reactive, you're going to be frickin' using this all the time, right? So hopefully you never get to here. And if your information has been leaked, if your information has been stolen, like that is absolutely not your fault. And that frickin' sucks. The internet should not be set up this way. It should not be set up as a corporatocracy where your information can just be split and sold and shared and leaked and then used in malicious ways against you. It's really incredibly upsetting. Saranya, that you had medical records stolen, that's terrifying. That's wrong. And that happens to so many people. I know Drew and I were talking about in that video that I referenced, the earlier version of this, where a similar thing, bank account information. I think, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said bank account information was leaked, and that also, like, it's, this sort of thing should not happen, but it does. And again, like, that's why we should be having these larger systemic conversations. That's why we should be taking these proactive steps, knowing that when in doubt, we are the product, so that we never have to get to this stage. We're here now. I recommend searching white pages at the very least. Why? Because that's a really quick way to tell how easily your information is scrapable from online. How easily your identifying information can be gathered and found across the internet. Look yourself up on white pages or other similar sites. There are ones that dig even deeper. And I don't have them off the top of my head, and I'm not even sure if I want to list them here right now. But you can find them. They exist. But I also just don't have them off the top of my head. I'm really struggling to remember the names. White pages is a good start. There are others that dig even deeper than white pages. Again, like white pages is like any of these other services. They scrape information from all over the web on people, and then they sell it at a premium, which is really fucked up. Really screwed up. They're gonna take your information and they're gonna sell it to people. And it doesn't matter if it's you. Right? It doesn't matter if it's you. They will sell people your phone number and your email and your history of addresses and your history of names and your history of who you lived with, etc. Yeah. So definitely look yourself up on white pages and see if you can be found on there. It's worth checking out. If you can ask them to take it down, and it's worth doing that. But before you do that, try and figure out where they might have gotten that information from. Because usually you can tell by the nuance of the way they list it where it might have been from. Whether it's renters' records or public information from the government or Facebook even. Making sure that your Facebook is locked down is a good way to do this. Again, when in doubt, you are the product. Facebook information is also bought and sold, but you can lock that stuff down. There are settings for this. All of this starts, all of it, it starts with having these conversations. It starts with thinking about it and having these conversations. And just knowing that when in doubt that you are the product. I think the last thing that I'm going to say here is that you can set up, there are auto search functions. These exist on Google on Google accounts as well as on other things. If you still have a Google account, hopefully you have tried to transition away from that, but I know I still have a Google account because I have to, and I know many of us also have to. There are auto search functions. You can search for your name. You can have a ping set to your email whenever whenever a search result comes up under your name, under certain specified information. And that can be set up definitely for Google, and I think for other search engines as well that have accounts linked to them. Don't quote me on that. Definitely for Google, though. Worth doing. Especially if you get into this reactive bit. Worth doing. So if you have, say, something that you don't want blowing up, that's when you do this. Okay. AJ, to answer your question, you've lived a messy online life, born in 2002, and you spend a lifetime online without much of a care to privacy. How do you begin to combat the mess? That's, I think, why I said, first and foremost, having the conversations with others is critical, right? Like the first step is really just talking to people about it. Asking people what they do for their own cybersecurity. Like having these conversations is really important. And that's not just to encourage others to move forward with it. That's also to encourage yourself to move forward with it. That's also to get tips from other people, right? And that's to generally, legitimately to reduce your own anxiety. I have found the more that I have talked with people about this, the less worried I am in my daily life about this, in my daily online life about it. Genuinely. The more I have legitimate conversations with people about it, the less I feel like I need to be concerned with it in my online sphere, because I'm like, okay, I have other people. One, I have other people who support me, and two, I'm starting to change the way I interact with, the online world. I'm starting to shift certain behaviors, and I'm starting to introduce new tools into my vocabulary. So legitimately, without these conversations, I would not be here giving this talk today, and without those conversations, I would not, I would not have the access to the tools that I have now. So I think that's number one. Number one is just start having those conversations, because as long as we all start having those conversations, as long as we all start talking about it, there's we're good. We'll keep learning, we'll keep improving. That said, again, the two things that you want to do today, install a password manager. You said you already use Signal. Hell yeah. So I'm so glad you already use Signal. I would, for you, since you have a Chromebook, I would say look up sideloading apps onto your Chromebook. You'll feel like a badass hacker, and it's pretty cool. Look up sideloading apps onto your Chromebook. Why not, right? You have to use that half the time anyway. So that means that at least, no matter how secure you make this other half of your online life, right now, this half of your online life is not going to be secure until you find a way to circumvent that. Sideloading apps will allow you to circumvent that. For those of you who aren't aware, who are watching this right now or in the future, sideloading is refers to the process of, I didn't know this until recently. Sideloading refers to the process just of, as opposed to downloading to a device, it refers to the process of downloading to a separate device and then transferring to a device that you might not normally be able to download a program to. So, for instance, I sideloaded an app onto this phone that I cannot normally download to this phone, specifically because it was not in the Android App Store, right? So, it's not a Google-approved app, right? Because Google doesn't like it. But I don't give a shit what Google likes, so I downloaded it to my computer and then put it onto the phone. Sideloaded. Thus the term. Other questions? I think, we are into question time. So folks who have thoughts, questions, concerns, harangues, curiosities. I can share other things. I do have other tools. I will go find that, I will go find that link to the journalistic. There we go. Found it. Found it. There we go. Found it. Okay, here we go. freedom.press/training. Opinion on Tutanota and Proton Mail. That's a good question. Yeah. I use Proton Mail. I have just recently made an account on Tutanota. I think that it bothers me a little bit, not gonna lie, that Proton Mail recently made that move. So definitely better than Gmail. Gmail sucks. Google is awful, right? Google bad, as previously said. Google bad. So in all cases, here's my challenge: switch off of Gmail. That's my challenge, right? Switch off of Gmail, no matter what you switch to. And make it harder for Google to enforce what they're essentially trying to do. They're essentially trying to monopolize the email market. They're doing this really, really awful thing they started doing recently, which is they charge a $1,500 a year or a year, I think, certification fee to any email service that does not follow their email verification schema in order for that email to receive and send emails to Gmail, which is like super screwed up. It's super screwed up, super screwed up, because it basically like just runs all, it's a monopolistic, like grab the market scheme. It runs all smaller competitors out of business. There's legitimately like small like a couple hundred or 1,000 customers, email providers who have just had to shut doors because of this, and it's happening right now. So boycott Gmail. Absolutely boycott Gmail. I mean, like, boycott Google generally, but specifically boycott Gmail. Google is evil. They removed the phrase "don't be evil." Like, they fucking meant it when they removed the phrase "don't be evil." So anyway, that's my rant about Gmail. Get rid of Gmail. Pro-Time Mail, fun. Pro-Time Mail, cool. Pro-Time Mail, exciting. Tutanota, same on all fronts. I like them both. I also am a little bit put off, I guess, by Pro-Time Mail's recent, like, we're going to rebrand everything and make everything super fancy, and we have enough users to do this. And then, like, also, but they weren't, like, really transparent about it. They just did this whole rebrand corporate. It was like, it felt really corporate. It felt really corporate in a weird way. So it was like almost like when Google did the whole full rebrand of their G Suite, and it was like, it was kind of cringe. It was kind of cringe in the worst way. It just felt very, yeah, it felt very corporate. So that's my take on Pro-Time Mail. I just really hope that they start getting transparency into their brains instead of just security. And right now they only have security in their brains, which is a good thing to have. But I want them to have transparency in their brains too, instead of freaking, just like, let's lock down everything. Yeah, that's all I got on that. Protect your email password, because with that you can reset passwords almost everywhere else, and the way to do that is to use a short poem or sentence that is easy to remember. Length top symbols. Yes, length does top symbols, absolutely. And password manager passwords, I recommend setting them to as high number as you are kind of like willing to do. I usually go like 20 or above personally. Do not use software that is cringe. Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing, right? Well, do not use software that is corporate. Whenever possible. The thing is, there's so much, I think, just, remembering that you are the product. And remembering that if you are not paying for this stuff, you have to seriously review it. And you have to seriously think about whether you want to use it and kind of enter into a relationship with it. And I think, part of the problem is that during the era of free sharing of open source software, like, we got used to this idea of, well, it's just free, it's out there. And that's true of individuals who share software under open source. and who are just sharing like the code, and that's fine because it's just sitting there. And I mean, like, maybe they're sharing a worm or something like that, and that's going to screw you over as well. But, like this, we're talking about huge corporations here. That's a whole different thing. Is MFA worth using all the time? As much as possible. As much as possible. Here's the thing with MFA, right? I like using it as like a lock and key analogy because I think it's passwords are a key and your account is a lock, right? It's a basic analogy. Everyone uses it. It's a good analogy. So MFA is like, you got your password, you got your lock, you got your key. MFA is like if someone has to call you before making a copy of the key. Right? Like, so there's like a whole extra step there. They have to fake your phone now. And suddenly it becomes a heist movie instead of just, oh, I just stole the key. Like it goes from normal criminal stuff to like a heist movie level stuff. And so like now we're talking serious, so like 2FA all the way. Yes, it is worth using whenever you can. There is a great site. I'm going to link it in the thing. 2FA. There's a directory here. I'm going to link this. I'm gonna send y'all all the links. It's gonna be great. This is a directory of every website online or every account, website, thing. Websites, yeah, and whether or not they support two-factor authentication. Check it out. Worth checking out. So. Generally, right, if you can do 2FA, do 2FA. Generally the recommended advice is, specifically with 2FA, do phone texts are the least secure, and then app button press or app code is more secure than that, and then like a YubiKey is like the most secure, but YubiKey is also a little bit wild and very hacker-y, and also apparently Drew has some words on that, so makes privacy more difficult for the less fortunate, doesn't it? AJ, can you talk more about that? Yeah, absolutely. Pennsylvania, I assume that's true, but maybe not. Pennsylvania folks, that is absolutely true. Like, many businesses did host their own private email servers. I used to be part of one, or two, I don't remember, but I definitely used to be part of one. With certificates, it is nearly impossible today, and it's really frustrating because you can't get like those fun little unique email at anymore. It's good. I want that to come back, and it's bring that back. Yes, absolutely. It makes it very accessible until you realize what's up, and you're absolutely right. It makes privacy more difficult for the less fortunate because it is an economy of attention, and so that means, unless you spend time working on it, you are going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be taken advantage of. And so, so it's really frustrating. So what we need is we need more resources that make it easy, that make it the easy option to choose security, right, as much as possible. Because it's incredibly frustrating how easy it is to be taken advantage of and to have your privacy taken away in the current corporatocracy that we live under. Yeah, I absolutely agree that it makes privacy more difficult for the less fortunate, given how attention is monetized currently. Okay, I'm gonna just about end it there, I guess. Any last questions are welcome, but I'm going to share a bunch of resources in the description after this, and feel free to ask questions or whatever in comments or on Discord later. I'll try and respond to them. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the talk tomorrow, which is from the... AJ, help me out here. Who's it from? Wait, I got it. For the Future of Our Labor Rights. The Future of Our Labor Rights is talking tomorrow at 9 Eastern, and then Friday at 9 Eastern, the State of the Fourth Amendment from the Restore the Fourth folks. Please come and see those talks. We're really excited about those. Hope to see you both. Hope to see you all at those both of those talks. Some really cool stuff going on here. So anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Yeah, digital labor rights. Some exciting stuff. Yeah, and thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next one. Vote pirate, as always, and yes, I will. Bam. I'm out.